Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're taking a look today at the HP Pavilion Power 15. This is a 15-inch laptop that sells for under $1,000 that has a GTX 1050 GPU built in. And a viewer told me about this about 2 weeks ago, and they were selling it for $260 off. So I got this one for $689, just over $700 with tax, which was a great deal. And unfortunately, when it got here, the deal was over with. So I will put some links down to Amazon in the video description where you can get it for around $800 or so now. There's a bunch of different configurations, which I'll get into in just a minute. But I do want to mention, in the interest of full disclosure, that I did pay for this with my own funds. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Nobody is paying for this review, and no one is reviewing this content before it is posted. All right, so let's take a look at the hardware. And before I do, I just went onto the website to check on it again. They put the sale back on. So I think this is going to be one of those things where the sale is going to be on and then off again. So I'll put a link to both HP and to Amazon so you can find it on the place where you can get the best price for it. So $679 as configured, at least at the moment. This does have a 15.6-inch display. It is an IPS display running at 1080p, so you get some decent viewing angles, although the display is a bit dim. But it's nice to see a laptop with a GPU at this price point that does have a display that is a lot nicer than what we've been seeing on a lot of those other sub $1,000 gaming laptops. I'm thinking specifically about the Dell Inspiron 7000 we looked at a few weeks ago. A nice horsepower, lousy display. This one has the horsepower and the display, which is a good thing. Now, the one I got here has an i5-7300HQ processor. That is a quad-core processor. It has 8 gigabytes of RAM. This one comes configured with a 1 terabyte mechanical spinning hard drive, 7,200 RPM, so it's a little faster than some of the low-end hard drives that are out there. There are other versions that have a 5,400 RPM. There are many others that have SSDs built in. So again, this is one of those computers you'll find in a bazillion different combinations of configurations. It is upgradable, but it is very hard to get into this case without risking damaging it. And that's one of the things that I like to measure up when I'm first doing my product evaluation, which is how easy is it to get into the case and swap out components. This one is very difficult. There are a bunch of screws on the bottom here that you undo, and then you have to be very careful to separate the bottom portion of the case from the metal deck here on the top. And I think it's going to be very easy to damage the computer here, which is why I didn't dive into it. I did find a few other videos on YouTube where people were working on this very similar case and were getting into it. There is a way to upgrade the storage and the RAM, but not friendly to do so. And that's one thing that the Dell did a lot better, was that it was very easy to get inside of it to swap out RAM and storage. That said, you can easily add an SSD to this if you don't want one up front. You can also upgrade the RAM too if you wish. I believe there's an M2 SATA slot as well as a standard SATA drive connector on this one. This one does have that NVIDIA GTX 1050. It has 2 gigabytes of video RAM. There's another version that has 4 gigabytes, so you can get a more beefier amount of video memory available to you if that is important. Now, battery life on this one surprised me. I was getting about 7 to 8 hours of basic tasks done on it, so that is a pretty good amount of battery life for this class of computer. So that was a good mark in its direction. You might see more or less depending on what you're doing. If you're running games on it, you'll see far less than that, but general tasks, boring work stuff should give you a good work day, if not a little more. Weight-wise, it is a little on the heavier side, but that's usually what you see with these types of laptops. 4.87 pounds or 2.2 kilograms, so not ridiculously heavy. It actually looks pretty nice. It doesn't look like a gaming laptop per se, and that's one thing that a viewer pointed out on my extras channel when I did the unboxing. You can bring this to the boardroom of your company and not look like you're carrying around a device from a science fiction movie like some of those gaming laptops look like. The keyboard is not great on this one. It looks nicer than it is. It does have backlighting on board here, which is even visible under my studio lights. It does light up white underneath it, which is a good thing. For some reason, I'm having a hard time finding my alignment on these keys, and it might just be the fact that there's a number pad here and I'm kind of typing off center, but I'm having a little problem being accurate with this keyboard. The keys are a little smaller than full size, but I think it's something I would get used to if I was using it over a longer period of time. It does have here a full number pad also, which I think is a good thing, especially if you've got the room for it. The trackpad isn't bad. It's decent. It works and not too sensitive, and I found it to be a pretty enjoyable experience overall. It's got the Bang & Olufsen speakers on it. It doesn't sound all that great. It is rather tinny and not any better than other other cheap laptops I have looked at. I often wonder if these laptops would be less expensive if they didn't have to keep licensing the names of speaker manufacturers for the side of their computers here. It's really not doing that brand any favors, and we're certainly not getting great sound as a result. You do have 2 USB 3 ports on this side. You also have a Kensington lock, so if you want to lock it down onto a desk somewhere, you can do that. You have a headphone microphone combo jack over there. On the other side, you've got a SD card reader. This is a full-size SD card reader, and the cards go all the way in on this one too, so you could have a little augmented storage if you wish. It snaps in like other cards might on there, so that was a surprise. Usually they stick out on you. Over here, you've got the power light and the hard drive indicator light. Next to it is a USB Type-C port, and it's a little deceiving because they put a little lightning bolt icon next to it, so I got excited for a minute thinking it was Thunderbolt. It is not Thunderbolt, unfortunately, just USB Type-C. It doesn't carry power back to the computer, so it doesn't support power delivery, but that little bolt icon indicates that it will charge your devices when the computer is off. So it's a charging port. It'll do video out and data from a USB Type-C device, but it does not charge the laptop. You still have to plug in the power adapter over there. There's also another USB 3 port over here. This one does have another little Thunderbolt icon next to it. That just indicates again that this is a charging port for a tablet or a phone or something. Full-size HDMI output here, so you can get video out of the USB-C or via the HDMI, and you get gigabit Ethernet here as well, which is great to see. And that's one of the things that I like about these larger, more generic laptops is they tend to give you more ports and more useful ports at that. So that is the overall hardware. Let's get in and take a look and see how it performs. So let's kick things off with some web browsing. We've got my YouTube channel running here with a 1080p 60 file. No problems running this one, no drop frames as I would expect it to perform, just given that we've got a quad-core Kaby Lake processor from Intel in this one. Web browsing is also very quick on this. I'm connected via wireless AC right now. It supports Bluetooth as well, and it of course has the Ethernet built in, but as you can see, things load up here very quickly, even on multimedia-rich sites, and this is what I would expect. One of the great things about where we're at with these Intel processors is that you can get the same processor on an inexpensive laptop that you'll get on a more expensive one. You just have a more clunky device to walk around with, but you can get the same or better performance versus a laptop that might cost 2 or 3 times as much. And on the browserbench.org speedometer test running in Google Chrome, we got a score of 139. This puts it right in line with where I would expect it to be, actually, compared to other Kaby Lake devices. Of note, though, take a look at the Microsoft Surface laptop. That one comes in at a lower score, even though it costs more. This computer is much more powerful than that more expensive laptop, but you're paying in that case for industrial design. Here you're getting something larger and heavier and a little clunkier, but you're going to get performance that outpaces something that costs more, which is really pretty cool once again. So let's take a look at Microsoft Word here and see how it does with some of these involved newsletter templates, and it does just fine, as you can see here, walking around a template with a lot of words and graphics on there. So I think if you're doing work on this computer, you will do just fine. But I know a lot of you are coming to this review to see how well it can play games, so let's take a look at a couple and see how it does with that GPU built in. So let's start off with The Witcher. What I've done here is set the graphics to their medium setting, and we'll back out of the settings here and hop over into the game, and I'm getting frame rates around 50 frames per second, sometimes 60, depending on where I am in the world and what's going on, but generally very playable with somewhat decent settings here. When I went to high, I was looking at about 30 frames per second, so you definitely see a drop off here the higher you go, but I'm sure you could tweak things and improve visual quality a little bit, yet keep the frame rates at a very playable rate here, and it looks nice here on the display. The fan noise on it is definitely audible. You will hear it running, especially when you're running a game like this under load, but it's not any louder than other laptops that are out there. So you will hear some fan noise, unavoidable when you're playing a game like this, but I found generally it remains pretty quiet when I'm just using it with Microsoft Word or something like that. Let's take a look at a few other games. So here is Street Fighter V. We're getting about 60 frames per second on this one. Right now it's at 60. Sometimes it's going down to 58 or so, but very playable, as you can see, and we have it currently set to the medium settings on this game. But again, another decent popular title that you can play at full speed here at 1080p with a laptop that you might be able to get for under $700. Good stuff. So one last game to check out, and that is Rocket League. I've got the full settings here enabled on this game, and as you can see here as I back out of the menu, we're achieving frame rates well above 80 frames per second most of the time, sometimes going as high as 100 or more, even at full settings. So the combination of the quad-core processor here along with the 1050 GPU is really doing quite well for gaming here, and I'm quite pleased with what I am seeing, especially given that we can buy this computer right now, at least, for under $700 and sometimes maybe around $800, which still is not a bad price for what you're getting here. So great performance on Rocket League, decent performance on other AAA titles, as you can see here as well, and this really does make for a decent computer that you might want to take off to college with you. It's also well suited for video editing and a lot of engineering applications too, given that you've got the GPU and a pretty decent processor built in for a pretty nice price. And on the 3D Mark DirectX 12 Time Spy test, we got a score of 1,731. That puts it right in line with all of the other GTX 1050 laptops that we have looked at over the last couple of months here on the channel, so it performs as expected. I also ran the 3D Mark stress test here to see how well it does under load to make sure that its thermal system is working properly, and we got a score of 98.3%. So it did get a little bit of throttling going on, but nothing significant, and it did get a passing mark on its thermal testing. And one last thing to check out, and that is how well it does multimedia playback. We've got Kodi loaded up here. I always like to look at these jellyfish files. I'll put a link to where you can find them down below. This is a 140 megabits per second 4K file, HEVC at 10-bit. Every time I do this video, somebody reminds me that this is not a 4K display, and I'm aware of that. But you can output this computer to a 4K display, so that is why I like to test this file. This is running fairly well. I am seeing a few more skip frames than I normally do with this test on this particular computer. Not sure why that is, but once it does start running, there is no dropped or skipped frames after that, so it is keeping up just fine. The Kaby Lake architecture does have the ability to decode this video in hardware. Prior generations did not do as well as what you're seeing here. We'll also take a look at a Blu-ray movie. Now, this doesn't have an optical drive built in, but you can run Blu-ray MKV files, of course, at their full bit rate if you find a way to get them off of your discs there. And here you can see we're not having any issues playing back this film, and all is working as I expected it to. We do get a drop frame here just at the outset, but again, once things are moving here, it is playing back just fine. So overall, I have to say this is a very good value, especially at the $689 price tag that it's currently at this very moment on sale for. And like I said, it was off the sale and now it's back on the sale. So keep checking that link and maybe you'll get fortunate and find this at a decent price. But I think this is a very good value, especially because you've got the IPS display, really decent battery life. You got the GPU built in. Overall, a really nice and complete package here that I am very comfortable recommending for a budget laptop that can also play many modern games quite well. And I'm, again, very impressed with what I'm getting here for the price tag. So that's going to do it for the HP Pavilion Power, and this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters, including gold level supporters, the Tangential Soup Podcast, and Chris Allegretta. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.